here with Dave Koszegi of the Dave team, and we're doing our first Hangout on Air live, and we're going to ask Dave some questions about Sproat Lake real estate. So welcome, Dave.
Hello.
So for anybody who's watching who doesn't know where Sproat Lake is on Vancouver Island, and I actually have a map here for everybody to look at. I will get up so you can see it. Sorry, I have the phone ringing there.
Well, the phone's there.
Just taking a minute here. What's the weather like there? Is it nice today?
Actually, it's awesome. Today we have sun. We actually had sun yesterday, and there was a couple of people out boating on the lake, believe it or not. Probably, you know, one last time where I think it was about 16 yesterday. It was kind of,
that's awesome.
Yeah, people were taking it the last little bit, and there's guys that are fishing and doing things that'll always be out there all year round, but yesterday was a really neat day on the water, actually.
Did you go out in your boat?
Actually, it was the day before, which was a bit overcast, but also not raining. And what I did was I took my little one and we pulled our boat out, because what we do is we switch from our sort of summer boat, like our little boat for skiing and stuff, and we switch to our tin boat. And I take the kids out with hot chocolates and stuff in the fall, and we go out. There's certain spots on the lake with nobody out there at all, where it's calm and tranquil. And we go to the Echo, and there's one spot where we can float out and we turn the motor off, and we can have our voices echo 5 times, like 5 bounces.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and the funny thing is my little 2-year-old thinks that you need to say echo for it to echo. So it's pretty funny, but that's what we do is we go to the Echo. So now we sort of switch into fall mode, and we're not the bigger boat we have out, and we have our little tin boat. And that tin boat was the first boat I was ever in my life on Sproat Lake. And my parents bought it from Woodward's way back when, so the thing's as old as me. And it's got a few leaks and stuff, but it doesn't matter. That's it. That's our little tin boat. So.
That is awesome. It's making me want to go buy something there now. So
yeah.
here's the map, and I will just close in here on Port Alberta and Sproat Lake so everybody can see. It's just on mid-Vancouver Island, partway on the way to the west coast to Tofino. And it's a pretty big lake. How big is it, Dave?
Well, one of the longest arms is about 13 miles. You can sort of see it looks kind of a bit of a distorted cross shape, and that long piece where you're seeing the balloon there, Taylor arm, that's the longest arm. And then when you go towards from left to right, so when you go left, the long one's Taylor arm, and then we'll go clockwise. Straight up is Sproat main arm, or people call it many different things. It's where the Martin Mars are, the bomber base there.
Yeah.
And sort of it's a little bit maybe perhaps more populated. It's populated on both sides, whereas Taylor arm is a bit more recreational, a little bit, sort of lesser developed. Then you got Sterling arm, which is going around the clock. It's at about 3 o'clock or 3:30 to the right.
This one?
That one, yeah. And then out through the bottom, which would be like entering at about 6 o'clock. That is the one called Two Rivers Arm, and that's really basically hardly populated at all. There's a few cabins and so on in there, and there's a neat little pass through that little channel that you go through where there's a bunch of little islands and things. So it's kind of like people think, they've seen every part of the lake, and then they go through that little channel.
Oh yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, because I was wondering, I know there are some cabins on the lake that are boat access only, and I wondered where they were. So some of them are in this area then?
Yeah, so you'll see them in that area. Actually, in the sort of channel coming through, that's called Dog Mountain area, and you'll sort of see them in and around there. And then once you come into Two Rivers, there's a few islands that have actual cabins on them, and there's also there's actually a place, it was called, I don't know where this name came from, but its name's been around for hundreds of years. I believe it's called Sing Sing Beach, and there's a beach where there's a little campsite out there. It's a very rustic one, and so there's low level sort of development, and I don't mean low level in a bad way. I just mean it's more rustic and more more out there. But there is some neat ones, like on the backside of Dog Mountain. There's a lovely cabin which has solar and everything. And I remember when they were pouring the foundation, they helicoptered in the concrete, and
Oh,
it
wow.
sounds kind of crazy, but it wasn't really. I guess they devised what the costs were with labor and time and all that, and they're able to economically helicopter in the concrete. And they built this little cabin. But it's like a small version of a house that you'd see in Oak Bay. It's got lovely windows, and it's got, you know, the shingled gables and all that. Beautiful house, small, you know, it's a cabin, but it's built like a house. And
Yeah.
you'll find some really neat places out there too, and people want that more away from it all type feel, so they'll choose that. And or if you go down, for instance, when you go in Degrees, there's that, and then when you go down Taylor Arm, there are those lots that you can get to by road, but they're still sort of deemed as sort of inaccessible waterfront, although the access is quite good, like you could drive to them. And those have a similar flavor to the completely inaccessible, you know, by road properties. But they have a, you know, it's sort of that midway point. You can still get to them relatively easily, but they're out there. And then when you look across the lake, all you see is trees. So whereas where I live, I'm on Faber, so when I look across the lake, I see houses, but that's okay with me. I mean, it depends on what aspect you're looking for in a property. Some people will like the action; they like to see ski boats go by, and other people want to just see, you know, the odd duck and the odd in the water, you know. And so we kind of have it all because the lake is big enough. There's kind of, you can be really hidden, or you can be more where there's action.
So the action is over here. Can you see my, yeah, you can see my mouse. So the action is over here, and the quieter areas are kind of up this area. Is that right?
No, so the area, oh, there you go, there's a delay. Yeah, that's correct. So your sort of quieter, Taylor or Two Rivers is sort of your more recreational properties.
Okay, that's Taylor. Yeah.
Yeah, and your sort of more action would be that main arm you were showing, and then also Sterling Arm. One whole side is developed as Sterling Arm, and that, yeah, you're not. That's Two Rivers, and then if you go more to the right, that's Sterling. Keep going to the right.
Yeah.
There you are. And then when you okay, so that right where your pointer is, keep moving it across to the other side a little bit. Like, I mean, across that arm. There you go, right there. Now that whole side is the developed side of Sterling Arm. So the other side is completely undeveloped. And so, but that Sterling Arm side, like your pointer is just a little bit above where it should be. It should be just a bit lower to be back into Sterling Arm.
Okay. Yeah.
But that Sterling Arm, there you are, location is an area that's known to have sort of the, what I would say, the most expensive construction permits. So because there are some more, this doesn't mean all the big houses on Sproat Lake are there, but there's consistency that there's these 3/4 acre to 1 acre lots, so they can facilitate the larger homes. And then in recent years, where you've seen the $3, $4, $5 million permits, they've been in that location. So there's no reason specifically that I would say, but like, you know, for instance, where I am on Faber, well, I have a half-acre lot, so you're going to have trouble putting a much larger home than what I have. But if you're looking for a larger, you know, to place a larger home, you're going to need that bigger level lot, and so you'll likely find it on Sterling. Having said that, one of our largest homes that we've ever sold, and it's one of the largest on the lake, we sold this year, and it was featured in your publication, and it was on Lakeshore, and there was a situation where you had a 2.2 acre completely level lot, and it had this, you know, this home that was 7,000 or 8,000 feet plus with a 4,000 or 5,000 foot garage. Very amazing place, like, you know.
Yeah, that was a pretty spectacular one. I remember that one.
Yeah, and so that was on Lakeshore, so you can't say that, you know, there isn't spots all around the lake, but that one is probably about 10 years old. And so when I'm saying the permits, I'm talking about the last sort of 2 or 3 permits that went out for these larger homes just happened in Sterling. But it's because you're selling paintings when you're selling the lake, people want to have the sunset in their lap, or they want morning sun, and so that person will pick their lot location based on their aspect, and then depending on the house size, then of course if they want a cabin or a mansion, they've got to size the lot accordingly. And so then it is really about available spaces, because there isn't a ton of properties ever for sale on Sproat Lake. It's always a small amount. It's a micro market. Yeah.
So what would like an average price for a property in this area be then, in the kind of more the exclusive part, I would say? Or
Well, I mean, it's not so much that it's more exclusive in a sense that you can end up also being on Sterling Arm and just having a cabin, and you can end up with a smaller lot. We have one for sale right now that's a smaller house with a smaller lot, half acre, nice setup, and it's $729 with the house and garage and everything on it. But then you could end up spending perhaps $1 million just to get that larger lot on Sterling Arm, but you could end up spending $1 million to get that one where that house we featured on Lakeshore was. It is a thing that is more, if it's Sproat Lake, it's still all premium, so it is more a thing of the overall size and the frontage versus whether it was on Lakeshore or on Sterling for that price. So you could have the same lot size, large lot, the identical price in Sterling or Lakeshore. So that's not so much the defining factor, but it definitely is one of overall size of the lot, topography, and the amount of waterfront.
Yeah.
I have a couple from Victoria that bought, and they wanted more of a bluff type property on Taylor, and they wanted that aspect, and they built a stunning home there. And you know, it was exactly the setting they wanted. They have an unbelievable setting, but it's more of a bluff type setting. And so it was about finding the piece they wanted, and it's a really beautiful development.
Yeah, and I guess in the privacy aspect too, different people want different amounts of privacy. So my other question about the privacy thing was, I was wondering for the boat access cabins, how difficult are they to get to? What's the, like, you know, how much time would it take to get from the main dock in Port Alberni to one of the boat access cabins in that area you were talking about?
Okay. So if you were launching your boat and you ended up launching it from the public access, for instance, which is where you have to launch your boats anyways in Sproat Lake, and you were launching there and then driving your boat directly to your property, say, so on Dog Mountain. So with a standard fiberglass 18-foot boat, you know, one that goes good speed and everything, you know, it's probably like 7 minutes. But if you're loading up your tin boat with all your gear and you're going like a barge to barge out there, you know, it could take you 30 minutes. But the reality is, in a normal, you know, standard runabout type fiberglass boat, you know, 7 minutes, 10 minutes to that Dog Mountain point. If you were going up Taylor Arm, it would be longer. But those properties you're able to get to by car, so you don't have that same need.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. So now what would the boat access cabins, I'm assuming in most cases, would be less expensive. What would be kind of like an average price for a boat access cabin there? So
they would be lower priced, and like the Taylor Arm ones are lower priced than the year round, so that's correct. You're probably starting, I mean, there's nothing under 300,000, so you're probably starting in and around the 300, but there hasn't been one for sale for a couple of years. The last cabin that we just did a deal on out Taylor Arm, so it is road accessible, that one. That one was listed at $415, and we're in the high threes for the sale on that one. So, you know, it might be around the same for Dog Mountain. It might be $325 with a little cabin. But if you could find one, I mean, sometimes people want Dog Mountain. There's nothing available. It's $400, and they might end up paying a little bit extra to get that seclusion. But it's in that range. So you sort of say that, you know, I've got a waterfront property for sale at Taylor Arm right now for $325. I could have a Dog Mountain one for the same value. A cabin or not, depending on the building, could change things by 20, 30, 100,000, depending what it is. So there's sort of that variance. Yeah. And when the sort of wall is, when you get into year-round lots, those basically start in the middle 500s, basically to 6, is where the starting price is for the year-round lot with either a small lot with something on it or just a lot. And that's sort of the difference. Yeah. So
one day in the future, I might be able to buy myself a water access cabin there. Who knows?
Well, I'm ready.
So, pardon?
I'm ready.
Okay. The other question I was wondering about is like recreation. Obviously, you've spoken a lot about, you know, boating. So there's, I'm assuming, fishing there. What's the swimming like? How warm is it? And how long of the year can you swim? And what kind of fish are there? And obviously there's I know in some lakes they have regulations about use of power boats, but obviously Sproat Lake is a pretty big lake. It doesn't seem like they have that regulation. So I'm assuming that you have water skiing and all that kind of stuff going on there too.
Okay, so to start with, we'll break it down. So for swimming and so on, I mean, the lake gets very warm during the summer, and oftentimes my family's in a little competition with another family, and we try to have the last swim of the year. So we haven't had the last swim of the year yet, but the weather changed all of a sudden, so I don't know how brave my little kitties are going to be. But normally we'd still be swimming right now, and so we might still be there. They're going to let me know what I'm doing. But last year we made it up until the end of October for swimming, and then the kids are often in. Yeah, kids are in May. Sometimes they're in a little bit earlier. It's cold though. I mean, to be totally honest, you're not really, you know, you or I maybe don't want to do it, but and in my the little kids, whether I want to do it or not, I have to. So, but and then, there's water ski clubs. There's basically, with the Bombers being on the lake, it's like a licensed airport where I live in that part, so there is planes that come in and out. Not a lot of planes. There's not a lot of air traffic, but it's quite fun to watch. They're talking about getting the old regatta, which was some boat racing that used to happen. In 1959, the speed record was set in Canada, the national record, on Sproat Lake, and so some of the guys that were in that club are trying to get that club going again, believe it or not. So there'll be a little bit of boat racing for the weekend a year, which is cool. Yeah, it's on the busier arm, so if you don't like that, you can always be on a quieter arm, but it's sort of a one weekend a year thing. The drinking water comes from the even though it has power boats on it, and the reason why that's okay is because the lake flushes about 10 times a year. It's an amazing watershed, so there's good fresh water. And then what's kind of neat, one of the lake culture things is to be able to cruise around in your boat and go for groceries or whatever. And for a while, because the West Bay, actually, which is Sproat Lake Landing, they burned down, and so they've been working out of trailers on the waterfront there, but the buildings are actually almost up, one of them standing. So the beer and wine store, the restaurant, the rooms will all be rebuilt and probably finished for this coming summer. And so now you'll be able to, just like you could before, throw the kids in the boat and drive in the boat across the lake and go get breakfast. And then, you know, after supper, you know, you could take off and go get, you know, a case of beer or a bottle of wine or something from the beer and wine. And so the services are coming back. They were never gone because they were operating out of trailers to just keep the general store open. But, you know, big difference in that and having rooms and also, you know, restaurant. That's kind of a cool thing. So you'll see by this summer those things back online again, and so you can, you know, pull up the gas bar, you can get gas and get chips, you can go to a different place and get, you know, beer and wine supplies, or go to the restaurant. And so those few things, although there's not a lot of that kind of business, it's there. The Fish and Duck pub is around, so it's another neat stop that it's been around since I was, well before I was a little guy, but I remember growing up around it. And you can go for the best fish and chips on the lake and go have those during the summer at the pub, and that's a really cool stop by boat. And then one of the things you were talking about was fishing. They do have little trout derbies, and there is, I think there's even a bullhead derby every year of some sort. And so there is fishing. My neighbor, 2 over, fishes quite a bit. I see him go out every day almost, and he's retired, and he quite often, when he goes by, will hold up his catch. I've seen him hold up a fish to us and stuff, and he's pretty beautiful. Now, you have to know how to fish to get these. My father and I used to fish on the lake. We were lousy fishermen, and we still did catch them occasionally, but my neighbor's a good fisherman, and he seems to catch them more often. So there's good fishing. There's a good water ski club. Yeah, all those kind of things. There's, you know, it's a full service sort of lake, so it's really nice like that.
Yeah. And now we'll get a little bit back to real estate before we end here, because what I was wondering, obviously the market here for waterfront was booming in 2006, 2007, and then in 2008 when the recession hit, well, I noticed in my business that some of the smaller towns around the waterfront market got hit. The kind of the luxury, high-end stuff definitely got hit when people were saving and pinching their pennies. So I'm wondering, is that affecting you still? I've noticed a bit of an uptick this summer. It seems like sales have gotten back to at least a pretty regular pace, and I just wondered how that affected Sprout Lake, if you were affected at all, or if prices have softened, or what happened there after 2008, and have you kind of come back if you did experience any kind of a downturn?
Okay, so actually, very interesting. We did experience a downturn. Fortunately for me, I managed to keep my volume up the whole time. So we've been always consistently selling, but the prices have dropped in some cases like 35%. Maybe even perhaps a bit more on some certain properties.
Wow.
But like this year, for instance, you're right, the volume did increase again. I've sold quite a few waterfronts this year. It's been very good towards the end of the season, believe it or not. A lot of my closings are still happening right now out there. But there's still price advantage properties. The price is still down, but we're really absorbing up the inventory now. So, I mean, that looks positive for the next couple of years. I mean, you know, what caused things to go up as high as they did was an artificial gain anyways, in a sense. So I think that we'll have a much slower build. Like, I don't see the market jumping up next year for any reason. If rates keep holding, I think we'll continue to see buying. And as stuff comes off the market, there's just never a lot of choices at Sproat Lake being a micro market. You know, you sell 6 or 10 houses, whatever I've sold this year. I think I've sold 10 to 12 even in waterfronts this year.
Wow. That's quite a lot.
Yeah, it was quite a bit. I couldn't give you an exact count this minute, but because our last just sold flyers being made right now, and we have 6 on it, and I think there was 4 on the other. So I think there's at least 10 that were waterfront, and they're still off water. So it was pretty good. And so with those being absorbed, and maybe some others coming back on, perhaps even at a little higher price slowly, you know, you'll see some gains. But I think we're still not. I think we're stable. There's good buys. And realizing the value, and so they're picking them up. But you know, I would say that, you know, until we sort of are rid of everything that you have listed, sort of thing, and you're kind of out of property, that's when you'll sort of maybe see prices uptick. So I think it's a slow recovery, but I think the market's very stable. And one reason why Sproat Lake has done better than some pure recreational spots is this. Half our buyers are recreational, but the other half aren't. They're local physicians, teachers, policemen that have houses out there that live. You know, like you know, our oldest is 7. When we moved out there 12 years ago, we didn't have kids, and we were worried if we had kids, we'd be the only people with kids. And this summer we had a birthday, and if you think it's really happened in the last 8 years, from kids from 8 years to 0, there was 32 kids there. And there were no kids, except when I was a kid. So it went from people my age growing up there, then no kids at all, and now a whole bunch of kids again. And those are from the people that live there year-round. So what's given us stability is we have a low turnover, and then half the buyers are localized type that, you know, are either going to retire in there and live full-time, or work and live full-time. And some lakes where they overdeveloped, and I think they were totally aiming at recreational, those ones have been hit a lot harder. And I think that's why you're seeing, you know, we've sustained our volume, and to absorb the remaining inventory wouldn't take much. It would take, you know, 1 more year and it would be out. So I think there's good signs of stability for us and good volume now, and so it's promising actually. But you know, there's still deals. It's if someone's looking for a deal, it's still the time to buy for sure. And I don't know, nobody knows when that uptick is coming, but it definitely it's stable. It hasn't need to drop anymore for the volume to pick up. So that's a good sign.
Right. Well, you answered my 2 next questions, because the next question was going to be about where the buyers were coming from. And it sounds like most of it's kind of half local, half you know, people looking for vacation properties. Are those vacation property people? Are you getting people from Vancouver, Alberta, or Victoria?
Yeah, we've never. Yeah, it's more Vancouver, Victoria. We really haven't had a high populace from Alberta. I think we will have from Alberta, but I think what's going to improve that is the opening up of the Nanaimo Airport. That the new navigation and the expansion of the Nanaimo Airport. There's always been a natural traffic flow from Nanaimo to Port Alberni and to Sproat, and so now with Alberta people being able to go direct to Nanaimo in the airport, I think that's going to open us more up for recreational sales to Alberta people. Sproat. I think that is a big advantage, and that's one other thing you just made me remember. I've had an increase in buyers in the last couple of years from Nanaimo. Part of it is my inventory is advertised there, but the other part of it is the market went up so high that a lot of people in the Nanaimo market were like, wow, I mean, this is way more expensive than our homes here in Nanaimo. And with that pullback and that price reduction, they go, wow, okay, now this is an opportunity where it's somewhat realistic. I know it's still lots of money, but it's somewhat realistic. Let's grab one while the price is down. So we have had an inflow of, let me say that, more island buying in the last couple of years than the Lower Mainland, although it's still always a factor, that West Van, North Van buyer. But where it was Vancouver, Victoria, I would say it's probably increased Nanaimo, Nanaimo, Nanoose, Duncan, Ladysmith, sort of Parksville, even Victoria versus the Vancouver, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I would have expected Victoria, but I wouldn't have expected Nanaimo. Although here I am in Courtney thinking about, oh, maybe I can get a place in Sproat Lake. So I guess I'm the typical buyer.
Yeah, and it's a very realistic thing to come to your summer place from Nanaimo, like a 40-minute drive. I mean, it's so easy. And when you arrive at a nice spot. Like, I mean, it's unlike any other. So I think it's really one unfortunate side with values dropping after 2008 was that, you hate to see those numbers. It was good that those numbers were there for homeowners, sort of realizing some gains. But the bonus was a lot of localized buying that happened now with the downturn, and so it does help really restabilize the market. So I mean, things are actually, to me, they're optimistic. It looks good.
Yeah, great. So the last question is just, I was thinking after I post this, I'm going to post it on our blog on Waterfront West, and I'm thinking that I might post some stats if you guys could send me some statistics of the different waterfront sale prices. I have a little bit of information from Landcore, who's a partner of mine as well, some statistics. So I will be hopefully posting some more information on the blog, as well as if you have any deals, Dave, that you want to tell people about, now's your chance. And I can put a link to them on the blog.
Okay, so you mean right now, or what would happen is that Randy would give you that data? Yeah,
Randy can give it to me. But if you have any, and then I'll post them later. But if you have any kind of like good deal properties out there that you think are really good value that you want to tell people about.
Well, I do. I mean, there's a couple I could talk about. I've got one on Dixon Drive right now, which is also on my site. And this house was on for $900,000 at one point, and it's a pretty substantial home. It's probably about 2,400 square feet. It's got a newer septic, shop, 200 amp service, a large wharf. It needs a little tune-ups because it's got absentee owners. But it had a new kitchen and a master bedroom with ensuite, lots of things done. It's quite a nice house. You'll see it on my site. And I got that down to $699. They decided they want to sell that this year. We've got a few people that have been thinking about it. Nobody's bought it yet, but it's getting close, I think. And that one's really positioned well to move this year. That's my Dixon Drive listing. And then the other one, I have one on Taylor that's also an exceptionally flat lot, self-facing. And it was used as a vacation rental for these folks for many years, and they just not seeming to get up here right now. But it's been reduced to $749, and it's like a 4-bedroom place, huge master bedroom with fireplace downstairs, with a completely level self-facing lot. And so, I mean, you're not far off lot value at $749, and there you have a house, and it's a 50s house. It's very nicely decorated. It's somewhat vintage, but it works well for a cottage. Really nice place.
Nice.
Contrast to the other one in Dixon. Steeper lot, very good sun exposure, but more of a year-round family home. So, but both those two are really interesting right now. I mean, it seems that people are, they're getting showings, and we're at the end of the season, and people are thinking about it. So I think those two are the next ones to go.
From Waterfront West, I'm back again, and we were just doing a hangout on air with Dave Koszegi of the Dave team in Port Alberni. And unfortunately, we got some kind of a hangout error in the middle of it, or at the end of it. So I'm just wrapping up, and you can view Dave's properties on our website, and I will be posting links to the Sproat Lake statistics and to those properties Dave was mentioning in the blog. So have a good day, everybody. Thanks for joining.